Welcome to Confessions of an EOS Implementer, a podcast by Talent Harbor. We share unique stories of EOS implementers and the companies they've transformed to give you a rare glimpse into the successes and the challenges of the system in action. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. Let's jump in. Hello. Today we've got Andrea Jones, a certified EOS implementer, joining us. We had an incredible conversation. We spoke about core values, and we went deep into core values, really understanding where do core values come from, how do you communicate those core values, how you hire and fire against those core values, and even how you can change core values and the signs that you look for and how you discover that that it's time to make a change or get more specific on them. We also talked about integrators. Integrators, what do they do? What makes a great integrator great? The relationship between the visionary and the integrator. And then we also talked about hiring. So hope you enjoy the show. We had a great conversation and it's coming up next.
The caliber of, pedigree and backgrounds and just full experiences that EOS implementers show up with are always remarkable to me.
I agree. And that was actually the purpose of this podcast to start it, is because when I was vetting EOS implementers back in like 2018, 2019, the thing that struck me the most was the level of expertise, the background and the experience. Because like generally when you're going out to get a management consultant, like not many are operators. Like they've kind of taken the consultancy path their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
But like EOS implementers are operators at heart. And that's actually you as well.
Yeah. I mean, really what I think is interesting, and especially from, and I'll lovingly correct the management consulting term, I think of myself, and EOS implementers really think of themselves as teachers and facilitators and coaches. So being able to facilitate the collective wisdom in the room and draw out what sometimes is latent, and finding alignment within it and finding resonance in it is really an art. And I think that quite naturally, most people that I've met that are in the EOS community love to teach, like really, really, truly do. And then if they're operators, if they, how they arrived to be where they are, but that entrepreneurial spirit is like very much alive in that space too.
I agree. I've never, to this point, I've never met an EOS implementer that that didn't impress me to a very high degree. And it's that blend, like it's like you all care, and that shouldn't be a rarity in life, but it tends to be. And every time I stumble upon an implementer, it's like it's genuineness, it's authenticity.
Thank you. I received that. Yeah, I think coming back to our like the intentional culture, which is one of the latest books that just came out in the EOS Traction Library, People, and considering like our own EOS core values, it really is something that any of the tools and practices, it's do what we say. So we have to consider that when in our own community of like how are we living up to our core values, and that's really important, like that intentionality of being here to help, of doing what we say, of doing the right thing. Grow or die is another core value that I think is just really speaks to how we live.
Got it. I got the People book on the day that it dropped. It's sitting on the shelf. Like I'm going to get it. But I'm so excited about that book. I saw it posting all over the place a couple weeks ago, so I did one of the Amazon pre-orders. So exciting.
Good for you, Ryan. That's awesome.
Speaking of operators, like you've gone from the government to industry to running your own company to joining another company and helping all of that. Like, talk to me about this journey and what it was like.
Sure. How far back are we going to go? So I grew up in a really entrepreneurial family. My dad is from Brazil. He ran a mechanic shop, and also, I mean, he had such a unique, interesting background. Also, did a patent for a freezer that he just like hearing his ideas and total visionary at heart. Just was something that really, I guess, lives on with me now. But when I was in DC area, worked for Department of Defense. So being in a place where it feels infinitesimally small, like the amount of change that you can make. And I know, like with your background in military, it's like we're almost meant to, if you're a blade of grass, to just like be the same as everybody else, and then you come out of that, and it's like, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you like be that tall blade of grass? And that's a really hard transition for some, and something that I've really enjoyed and had compassion and admired about that transition. Working with Bunker Labs a few years ago has been like such an awesome opportunity to give back and help people with that transition. Really aware of, through my own experience, what that felt like coming out of that Department of Defense world into okay, run your own business now, go. So that was my government life. Government, can't really say too much more about it, but
Yes.
but it was an amazing experience, for sure. Coming here to Minnesota, I've lived here about 17 years, and that was where I really got my feet right into the entrepreneurial space of opening and running my own gym. We had the second CrossFit gym here in Minnesota, and then launching my own brand with my co-founders called Alchemy, which is a blend of yoga, strength, and conditioning. And that was really the first time that I even was introduced to EOS, and introduced to the concept that something exists that could give us like these tools that we don't have to make up. I think visionaries naturally are, we're just going to make it up along the way, and learn, which is awesome, but can be really hard for the people you leave in your wake.
Were you hitting, like when you discovered this, do you feel like you were hitting a wall or a ceiling at the time? Was the business running you and you weren't running the business?
Great question. When we were introduced to it, we had our first business was successful. I mean, we had 4 CrossFit gyms, 600 members, really strong community. I was there this morning actually. I still go there, love the people, love the sense of it feeling like your first baby when you're like birthing a business. It very much feels like it's something coming from deep within you. It's such a personal experience. But as we were launching this second concept that was brand new, this blending of yoga and blending of something like CrossFit that just couldn't be more opposed, and who it was for, all of these factors, somebody introduced it to us and was like, hey, maybe in doing this, you can set yourselves up to move faster, right? To kind of learn from the get-go that things that you might not have learned from, you can learn it, but it's slow. And you'll trip and fall so many times. And so being able to have resources where right away we're talking about our accountability chart and structure, what are our roles and responsibilities, and that was like a big sigh of relief, right? And I'd been running it with my former husband and good friends, and so especially when you're in that like family friend space, having things really crystallized and clear from the get-go was awesome. It was really awesome.
That's really interesting. So I've quite a few times, because when you start a company, the people that naturally kind of gravitate or express interest are people that are closest to us, and so it just feels and becomes natural that you start kind of picking from those areas initially to either get help or even for employment. Have you found that there can be a way to successfully bring on, whether it's family or friends, or even once like accountability is instilled and the vision is crystal clear and all these
Mhm.
parts are coming together, it can really start to change or evolve those relationships?
Absolutely. I think that you can do it in a way that feels aligned and integrity, having adult agreements right away, right? You're like, we're going to have an accountability chart. Here's what I am and here's what I'm not, right? Being clear on what your unique abilities are. And we regularly say, in the EOS space, that if we're thinking about how does this person fit in, because I really like them. I like hanging out with them. I like whatever activities you like to do together, and hobbies. But it's so different when it comes down to, do you get it when it comes to marketing per se, or whatever role they're going to be stepping into, being really crystal clear on what that seat or what that function requires, and having an open and honest conversation of, do you get these things? Do you want it? Do you have the capacity for it? And I think really genuinely, I think when people have information, then it's easier to make those agreements. If you try to make them after the fact, egos and get bruised, and sometimes this is what I heard, but it wasn't documented. Um, there's unnecessary pain, I think, that
Hmm.
comes from not following some kind of structure, because everything is always going great until it's not, and then what do you fall back on? And I think having a system like EOS where you can have the processes laid down, measurables of like what does success look like, um, makes those relationships that you have that much stronger.
Got it.
Mhm.
That's really interesting. And one of the things that you said, or inferred, that I'd never thought of before is, the people that are around us, closest friends, family, like they're kind of naturally going to fall into the culture that you're trying to build, because generally, like, we associate or hang around people that share our personal values anyhow.
Mhm.
um and so, to you, and this makes a lot of sense, it's all about like the crystallization of the GWC aspect of it can really help ensure everybody's on the same page and there's no hard feelings.
Absolutely. And I love that point of, you know, you clarified it even further, going back to core values. If you know who you are at your core, and I think that's part of the work that we all do, is regularly mining for who we are. So it makes it that much easier to attract the people into your organization that align with those core values. But in those core values, I also, what came up when you were saying that is, you think about the people that are closest to you are sometimes the people that you treat the worst, or that
Mhm.
you let things slide. And so having the ability to name your core values and really, have them be true for you and give each other shout outs around it, it also creates an objective way to say, like, hey, Ryan, whatever you said to me last week, that didn't really align with like who we are. And then it just again makes it easier to open up conversations that can otherwise be tricky,
Yeah.
hard, um,
Yeah.
awkward.
It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about core values lately, and how they impact the organization, and to me, core values are about how people operate without direct supervision. And so, like, if you get the people that hold the same beliefs and see the world the same way, and diversity, for sure, diversity of upbringing, diversity helps solve problems, but everybody has to have a core belief, a sense of like, this is where I belong, and that belief has to be shared. What's interesting is, like, the core values of a company just generally are always the values of the founder or the values of the owner, and I'm sure that changes over time.
Mhm.
But that, maybe that's just my experience, because most of the companies I've been in have been smaller startups, founder led. Um, but it seems like the CEO or the founder is always kind of the mirror image of how that company thinks and operates.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
the one of the first exercises that we do in our foundational period, onboarding a client and kicking off their journey with EOS, is a discovery exercise to really understand what are the core values. And sometimes um, that feeling that they're being handed to you, like you don't have a say, or if maybe they've evolved over time, the idea of revisiting these core values after they've been created is also really important. But in the discovery exercise, it's understanding that the leadership team is finding agreement and understanding. And one of the tools we use in looking at your core values is a tool called the People Analyzer, where we put ourselves in, like, right up against it and say, like, do am I embodying this core value? And if I am not, how can I lead, manage, or hold somebody else accountable to the same core value? So it's a conversation that it's you've named it, and for sure I agree with you that it might come, like an idea might come from the founder. But what I think is a beautiful exercise with the leadership team is understanding what's the root of it, and do we all embody it, or does it feel, if it feels like that's specific to the founder, but I'm not really, maybe we could reframe it or define it. And this is where like the words have so much power, because then as we roll it out and say it to people, talk about it, find examples, give awards, like really allow those core values to come to life, then I think the embodiment gets more infused throughout the organization versus it feeling like it came from the founder, it's on the wall, it hasn't changed for 20 years. I'm not even sure what they are, what they mean. They become stale.
That's really interesting. Do you think people can change? And the reason that I ask that is because when you think about the GWC, like
Mhm.
let's say they don't have the capacity or capability, like that's something that maybe they can develop. Maybe something that you can get training, maybe something that you can help them bring it along. But have you seen where someone's not a good fit inside of the organization as it relates to the core values, and they've been able to kind of change and mold themselves to now be a mirror image of what the organization's looking for?
Sure. I love this conversation, by the way, Ryan. I could talk about core values all day. So, when it comes to can you change? I think one of the things is when there's the fear of, um, let's say, for example, someone is not living up to the core values, but no one has said anything. That's unfair for everyone, right? And especially, and it can be really toxic to an organization because the person that is living it is looking at the person that's not, and they're like, is someone going to say something? Why isn't their boss saying something? And it can start to create this dent in the culture, and it's a weak spot. And I have seen, like, if you have the conversation, and being really open and honest is like the biggest thing, right? And within 24 hours, I being able to say, hey, this happened, not letting it fester, both praise and conflict, being able to come at it right away and say, hey, I saw you um, live this core value. Thank you. Like you're putting a marble in the trust jar, as Brene Brown would say, for like trust in this culture. And if you're not having that conversation, and whether it's through an example or opening, like, hey, what's going on, maybe something personally, like most of the time when we talk about a people analyzer, it's you're either exhibiting this core value most of the time, we're not robots, or on the flip side, hey, I see most of the time this last quarter you haven't been, and this is a conversation. And in those moments, even in my own company, I've seen someone recognize, like, hey, someone sees me and cares, so I want to show up. So allowing space for someone to change is such a beautiful thing. And then if it's not, it's revisiting that conversation, hopefully in a loving way, and just reiterating, I'm still not seeing this. And at that point, maybe it's not a good culture fit. And then for the greater good of the company, and really it's a win-win situation for everyone involved, maybe that person just is a better culture fit elsewhere.
Yep. The one thing, as you were bringing this up, I'm going through some classes right now at the Naval War College, and we talk about leadership and effective communication. And effective communication comes from when you have finally said something so many times that you see eyeballs roll, then you finally know that it's getting through, because they're like, we've heard this again. And
Yeah.
it's something we used to do all the time at Hunt to Killer. Every single week we would have an all hands, and let's start with the first. When we finally cemented our core values, we did the whole. These are our. I think we had 5, and these are our 5 core values. These are the core value definitions, and then here's a narrative. And then we had our graphic design team put this into like this amazing poster that also folded into a booklet, and we shipped it out to everybody. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't
Love that
stop
on
there.
many
Okay.
levels. Oh, I love it for a number of levels. Like 5 is always a good number because it's nice to have an odd number. And then also people hear it differently. Sometimes they need to hear it, yeah, 7 times, 70 times before it's heard the first time, and also visually seeing it. So love that. Sorry
Yeah.
to yeah.
I'll see if I still have a copy. I was so impressed. I mean,
Cool.
granted, we were a creative company, and so we had
Yeah.
an amazing design and writing team, and so
Mhm.
it was second nature to us. The other thing that we used to do, and this is what I felt made the biggest impact, was that when we recognize people, so every single week we would start
Mhm.
off by recognizing people, and we
Beautiful.
wouldn't just say, "Hey, Dan did a great job this week," or Jennifer was hit all of her measurables for the week.
Mhm.
What we would do is we would pick a specific core value and then we would share the exact story where that core value was demonstrated.
Yes.
And like making that tangible so people can actually like, oh, it's not just up on a wall. Like this person did this action and that was a representation of this core value. It helped bring those things to life.
Yes, having them come to life week to week, it allows people, I mean, we're creatures of habit, having, I think one of the things around EOS of having like your regular L10 meetings, same time, same day, same place, same people, start on time and end on time, and going through the agenda where you allow, and it's right in the agenda where you allow for customer employee headlines, beautiful spot to give and deliver authentic feedback and shout out to core values. And the way you describe it is really nice because hearing the core value, we memorize it, we attach a feeling, an example to it, and people want to rise to the occasion. We all want to be seen and validated for our efforts so that they're reinforced.
Okay, I'll take us back to you were you self-implementing by the way? So you discovered the book, you were launching this new gym that was
Mhm.
a CrossFit slash yoga, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The,
and strength training. Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah.
And you went out and you discovered it, and I'm certain that you read the book Traction.
Hmm.
Okay, and then did you self-implement?
We started looking at it like, okay, maybe we could look at these roles. I might take this one on. I might take on operations. You might take on marketing. And then we're like, no, 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 let's like flip that. And so we started to have it opened up conversations for us. But within 4 months, we hired an EOS implementer, Justin Cox, and it was just such a game changer to have somebody in the room that could call us out on our BS and really teach the tools in a pure way. I think oftentimes, wherever you start is where you start, but having someone and running a gym, being a coach, having someone that is delivering feedback, offering cues, um, sharing experiences from other people that have been through a similar experience, it offered us so much trust, beautiful guidance, and really time. I think so much of it. Just yesterday, I was in a session and the team was talking about having this long form communication, an opportunity for people to, zoom out and get out of the day to day, all the activities that they do in the business, and really connect, work on the business, and celebrate their wins. And that was something that I loved being in the room with my team and the EOS implementer. We did self implement on our first business. We went back and having learned the tools in a wonderful way to learn and master concepts is to teach back, right? I mean, I think even in the military, there's that element of like, can you offer a teach back? And the relationship of teacher to student is always such a beautiful way to reinforce ideas and concepts. So we went back, self-implemented there, and we were able to sell our business after 10 years, which is such a beautiful thing. Like loved the team that took on our gym, and as I said, still go there. Love the community. It's really strong. Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you attribute like being able to grow and get to a place where you could sell the business? Do you attribute that to a lot to EOS and some of the framework that you've put in?
Absolutely. And to just reinforce that element of core values as you're thinking about who you're hiring, how you are ensuring that the culture, especially when you're moving from one owner to another owner, while also honoring the community and members, um, allowing there to be a smooth transition because of the shared vision, shared culture, really, I think made a big difference.
Got it. And what was either while you were self-implementing or 4 months later when you went and got the a certified implementer to come through, like
Yeah.
what was the biggest challenge that you had out of the gate trying to get this thing integrated into the business?
I would say the biggest challenge is finding a routine. Like what, the first time that you start going to the gym and you're thinking, this morning I'm tired. I'm not going to go in. So just reinforcing all of the tools. And I think, and I regularly will tell clients, like some people want to come hot out of the gate and it's like scorecard and rocks and everything's like 100%. But allowing there to be just the adoption. So I think the adoption of, are these the right metrics, and are we still doing the L10, and are we honoring 90 minutes, or are we trying to cut it short? Are we talking about the core values every week? Do we remember what they are? Like, are we using it word for word? How are we, coming back to the VTO and allowing, like, have we refined our target market? It just allowed for a lot of questions. But I think the challenge initially was just think about the first time you take a course at college or university where you're trying to understand the syllabus and the objectives and the assignments. It's new, so giving yourself a little grace to fumble through it a little bit and not be perfect.
Got it. And when you talk about adoption and it's almost like giving yourself grace, or allowing this to really absorb before you start going, before you start taking it throughout the organization.
Right.
Like, when is the right moment to say, like, we've mastered this skill as a leadership team, we believe in this, we have everybody on the same page, and now we're ready to roll it out to the greater good or the greater organization?
Sure.
Like, when do they know?
Varies. It really varies. When we started, working with an EOS implementer and refining our VTO, one of the first things we try to do within the first 2 quarters is put something on the calendar of like, when are we going to start sharing this, and what are we going to share? It doesn't all have to be all at once. Although I've worked with teams that are just ready. They're ready to do it. And as going back to your example of having worked with a graphic designer, and how are we going to compile it, and how are we going to visualize this for our team, that can be helpful. So that can be like this beautiful presentation, and we're going to make it big and bold. I've also seen people quite simply, hey, here's our new accountability chart. Next week, you're going to see a new agenda, but we've like set a calendar invite for 90 minutes. It's our first L10. Here's a video. Simple is always best, and you can always refine and build off of it, make it sexier along the way. But anything and everything in between I've seen. One of the things we did was use it when we're delivering the state of the company address, of just allowing it to be a celebration. So first 30 minutes, we're just honestly walking through the VTO, and again, not perfect. We're reading it. Oh yeah, skip that. Let me go back. And that's okay. The next time it gets better, and then the next time it gets better. But we're doing it similar to how you were saying, Ryan, of just repeating yourself until they're rolling their eyes. You're like, I get it, until it's baked into their DNA, and then do it some more. And along the way, there might be a change. Hey, we recognize this core value just wasn't really like making us. One of the core focus for Alchemy was help people feel more alive with innovative fitness that works. So if a core value is not helping us feel alive, then we have the power to change it. And so here is the updated version, and this is what it looks like. And you all embody it. So thank you for doing that. And moving on, here are our quarterly rocks. This is how we did. It's always a revisiting of how did we do, where are we now, and where are we going?
When you think of it, not to take us back to core values, but this is
Oh,
fascinating.
I love
It's
it.
fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because you just talked about changing core values,
Sure.
and this is something at every single annual meeting.
Yeah.
You revisit everything.
Yeah. And quarterly, yes.
How do you know it's like, oh, these are getting stale, or like, oh, well, people exhibit this, but it's not moving the organization forward?
Mhm.
Like, how do you know it's time to change one?
I'll share from personal experience why we changed ours. And this is, in full gratitude to a wrong person, right seat. So in the example of the people component within EOS, one of the ways, two common issues that bubble up is wrong person, right seat, meaning they do not exhibit your core values, yet they are nailing their job. And that is a tough position to be in, especially if you're new, small company, and you're like, dang it, we have a hard time being around them, but they are like firing and also, getting the job done. Measurables in there and everything. So when we had that issue bubble up for us, we went back and looked at our core values, and we're like, let's put this person through the people analyzer. And lo and behold, they are not meeting the bar. And when we set the core values, we also set the bar of, in your example, Ryan, of having 5 core values, the reason why having that odd number can be helpful is you might say, it's okay to have 2 of them that are plus minus, meaning, we're not perfect. But for these three, we really need to see most of the time people exhibiting this core value. And so when we reviewed our core values, we thought, well, how do we ensure that we don't hire another person that exhibits these similar qualities that don't vibe with us? We are not being specific enough. And when we're hiring someone, you really want to almost repel people away. Like, this is going to be really hard. One of our core values at Alchemy was, the answer is yes. What is the question? Another one was, and you can bleep this one out, but this is fucking awesome, which means it's awesome at 4:30 in the morning, and it's awesome when you're cleaning a toilet, and it's awesome when you're mopping the floors, and it's awesome when you hit your sales numbers. It's all awesome. And so that was something we'd learned and that's a quality about someone that we wanted to be really specific about. Another one, and most companies will have a core value around this attitude that you have. That's like hard to say. Like, you can meet all of the qualifications, but there's an attitude that you hope is the energy that you want to bring to your day. And for us, it was this is fucking awesome. And it helped, like, as we're doing the people analyzer, looking at someone that's not a good fit, that helped us refine it. And so, previously there was something maybe a little softer that didn't quite embody what we meant. And in my first business, there was something similar too, where the core value is sunny side up. So doesn't matter what was going on prior to walking in these doors, you walk in the doors and it's sunny side up, because that's what people are here for, especially in a service business.
I agree. And something you keyed in on there that I thought was really interesting was, like, there are some that are non-negotiable. And so when you were saying that, I was like, well, what would be non-negotiable on ours? And, like, we've got integrity on ours, and you can't get a plus minus, God forbid a minus, but you can't get a plus minus on integrity.
Yes.
And so you're right. And what I have found is this is the hardest part of hiring. Like, looking at a resume and understanding, do they have the experience? It's a check in the block. Having a couple conversations to baseline their competency in a certain kind of field, check in the block.
Yeah.
Understanding who they are as a person, hard. One of the hardest things. Are there tactics, strategies? Are there, when you were evaluating people coming through the door and you were looking at your core values and trying to determine, is this person going to fit? How'd you do it?
Everything from, for us, what was easy, because we're hiring coaches most of the time, if not 95% of the time, we knew them because they were part of the community, or they start working out at our gym. And so we would know them from we would kind of know their disposition already. So that was easy, right? I'll use an example. I heard Patrick Lencioni speak a couple years ago at our EOS annual. He's such an amazing speaker. And he talked about, in one of his, as part of an interview, he would, invite someone to lunch or a walk, and then have like a little, like, maybe the calendar invite was off or the location might have been off, and just see what their reaction was to it. Are they flustered? Are they open, amenable? Are they go with the flow, or does it a panic ensue? Or I think it might have been also like the way they order. It's just picking up on some of these softer details that really do make a difference.
I've heard the one about ordering before, and I'm not sure who had spoke about it, but they would go
Yeah.
to the restaurant early, or call the restaurant to make sure that they screwed up the person they were
Yes,
with's
there's something
order.
like that. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you were walking through that one of the things I was thinking about is what you're talking about is time and building a relationship, and I think a lot of people rush
Emotional intelligence.
hiring.
Hmm.
Emotional intelligence, yes.
Yeah.
um like all of these things come into account, and especially when companies are growing very fast, and they just, they have so much work they don't know what to do with, and they just have to go hire somebody. That's where trouble starts, because you
Mhm.
start skipping steps, but not really understanding who the person is and taking that time to assess. So
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to get to this, integrators, like you do a lot of great work with integrators,
Mhm.
and I feel like integrators is one of the most like misunderstood roles in all of this. Like, what is an integrator, and like what makes a great integrator?
Sure. Well, the integrator is the person that harmoniously brings the leadership team together. When we're creating an accountability chart and listing out the key roles for each seat, integrator often has something around removing obstacles or smoothing the runway. Oftentimes, they are to differentiate from visionary. They're the person that doesn't mind getting into the dirt, having that hard conversation. They see the forest through the trees. They're like, this is our vision. I'm like the protector of the vision and ensuring that the company rocks that we're doing and the efforts that we're focused on this quarter is aligned with that. And so in meetings, there's one of a key role for integrators is being able to make the call. When something is, it's not a work by consensus. It's at the end of the day making sure, no, that this is what we're going to do, and move forward. So the integrator is really critical to being able to do that. So there's and Rocket Fuel is a great book for anybody to read, to really understand. And the Rocket Fuel University has really taken off. Now we have like integrator master classes, and there's integrate assessments that you can take of understanding, do I have more qualities that line up to an integrator or maybe to a visionary. But being able to find someone that fits those roles well and is able to manage both the leadership team and overall vision, and being able to see the rocks through is really important. Oftentimes they might have the profit and loss statement as one of their key roles. Yeah, and it can be. I've seen people in the integrator role sometimes come from operations or finance, but truly it can be unique to the company as well. The relationship with integrator and visionary is also really important. It's a marriage in some ways, of being able to recognize how they balance each other. Stereotyping visionaries for a moment, and I'll do that because I am one. But it's being able to say, if the visionary comes in with 20 ideas, the integrator is able to say, we're going to park these, try this one. Really important for them to have like their own same page meeting and cadence to be able to connect the dots.
It's really interesting when you just said, the visionary with the 20 ideas and the integrator to try and figure that out. I was talking to Nick Bradfeld
Yeah,
last week.
yeah.
Yeah,
He's
amazing.
Bunker Labs connection.
I know. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bunker Labs connection, I was talking to Chris from Bunker Labs. Chris, I think he's the CEO, right? Bunker Labs was just
Oh,
acquired. I was
yeah.
talking to him yesterday, and then I was texting back and forth with Blake Hogan, a
Yes,
couple weeks ago.
beautiful.
Small world.
Really is.
Um, One of the things that Nick said, he was like, good integrators, there's like yes buts, and then you try and teach people it's yes and. He was like, but the best ones say yes if. And
Ooh,
I thought this was
I like that.
so incredible, because it's like, yes, if we do this, this, this. Yes, we can do this if, we shift. And I thought that was a powerful statement. Um,
Absolutely.
there was
There's beautiful
you
assessments too that help you understand. Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius is really, really wonderful to see. He has an acronym in from the Working Genius assessment widget, and it's going through, sort of the stage of seeing a goal through. So from concept of the idea, there's this concept of wonder, and then innovation, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. So the acronym is widget. And I think for integrators, that ability to like see something all the way through, that idea of yes, if maybe like if we get all the way through this and we're tenacious about it, then this can happen, right? The Colby assessment is another one that's really great to also understand and recognize what are the qualities for any seat that you might want to leverage in order to bring on that right person, right seat.
Yep. One of the things that you said earlier is the integrator. The integrator can actually make the decision. Like when everybody's around the L10, like everybody gives their input, and then the integrator says, "This is what we're doing."
Mhm.
How do you ensure? And I've ran into this several times.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that the visionary and the integrator would have made the same decision in that moment as the integrator is kind of taking the lead and taking the
Sure.
control?
Sure. Going back to those adult agreements, right? Like there's trust that the integrator will make the final call should there be, and let me just go back on that for a moment, is if there was a tie or if there was like really like we're just kind of talking in circles here and we don't know what the next step is. But oftentimes like when we, the art and science of IDSing, identifying, discussing, and solving for the greater good does come back to, if you're identifying the issue, the person identifying it might be directing it to, let's say I sit in operations and I have an issue that I want to direct to the head of marketing. And in that discussion, there might be a solve that the head of marketing would say, like in that sense, I think the integrator would, and to empower the person in head of marketing would be like allow for that to happen. But if there was still the solution was still unknown, or we're fumbling, or there's heated debate, then the integrator would make the final call and hopefully have the right tools to be able to facilitate to a solve.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so going back to your question, though, you asked between the visionary and integrator. For the visionary and like they're and having same page meetings, if something comes up, and this is where just the visionary and integrator are talking, there is a trust that's established there that is, the role that the integrator has, that they make the final call. But should there be an issue where visionary's like, I don't know, but this is a conversation that they would probably take offline, or maybe they would have had ahead of time if they're in the cadence of being able to predict some big issue that is coming up, then it's not, you can get into a rhythm maybe where the visionary wouldn't be surprised by that answer in the middle of a meeting, if that makes sense.
Got it. So it's almost like being on the same page up front. And is that what you called it? Was the same page meeting?
Same page meeting. Mm-hmm.
Same page meeting. And is this a weekly thing that should be happening between visionary and integrators?
No, it can be, I've seen it monthly or twice a month. It most certainly could be. It really depends on their schedule. But really the point of having meetings or any type of meeting pulse is to simplify. I think anyone could relate to like, gosh, there's another meeting on my calendar. Like, can we simplify this? So I would say the less is more initially, but at least once a month, at least.
Got it. Okay. So someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're like, Andrea needs to be my implementer for my company.
Mm-hmm.
How would somebody find you?
I'd start by saying thank you. Yes, you do. They could find me, my email, andrea.jones@eosworldwide.com, or they could find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on the EOS Implementer directory if you go to eosworldwide.com. So I have my own, website there, and you can learn a little more like my flavor. I'll have a video on there. I think it's really important to recognize, similar to the culture fit and core values that we've just been talking about, are you ready to spend 8 hours in the room with someone? Just like the energy mix is just as important with your EOS implementer as it is with your leadership team, as it is with the rest of your company.
Nice. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I like to ask as well is that it's usually around like if you go get a beer with you, I will ask if you could go do a WOD, a workout of the day, with any EOS implementer out there. Who would you most like to do a WOD with?
Oh my gosh, another EOS implementer. I know Sue Hawks particularly loves working out, and is in here in Minnesota, and we have not worked out yet together. Yet, I have walked with her. We've walked around the lakes, and so I just enjoy the having someone next to you that's ready to like, let's pick up the pace. Let's do this. Be motivated, high energy, good vibes. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your knowledge. I didn't see us going down the path of the values, but it's such a critical thing, and should be talked about more. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah, you're so welcome, Ryan. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Confessions of an EOS Implementer is brought to you by Talent Harbor. To find out more about Talent Harbor and our fractional services and talent search solutions for businesses that operate on EOS, visit talentharbor.com. And then make sure to search for EOS Implementer in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Talent